Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. Our lead story of the day, as always, is yesterday's White House press briefing where John Kirby and Karine Jean-Pierre are questioned on a variety of topics, all the way from China possibly invading Taiwan and why Joe Biden hasn't called Xi up. We also have Karine Jean-Pierre being questioned about why Joe Biden is not taking any questions from the press, at least unvetted questions, in a formal press conference. Wait till we get to that one. And we also have the White House quadrupling down on how Joe Biden and the Biden administration supports an assault weapons ban, which the Senate has passed, folks. We'll jump into that story. We got a lot of stuff packaged for you today. Support a true American patriot by hitting that like and subscribe button. Leave us a short, sweet comment down below. Folks, YouTube heavily wants you to integrate as well as interact with the channel here. So you leaving a comment down below does yeoman's work in supporting us and helping us get our videos out there to new viewers who haven't seen our content or our channel. Your help and support would be greatly appreciated. This first question goes to John Kirby from Fox News, questioning him on the idea of China possibly invading Taiwan, just Chinese relations with their foreign policy. Why hasn't Joe Biden called the guy up? Let's hear the response.
Moving to the tension between China and Taiwan, we know the president can pick up the phone anytime and call President Xi. We've been told that this call is coming for months. Why hasn't he just picked up the phone and called President Xi to say, knock it off?
The president looks forward to having another conversation with President Xi. And we'll do that at the appropriate time, and we'll certainly keep you apprised of that. It's important that those lines of communication stay open. The tensions are certainly high right now. We'd like to see this relationship get onto a better footing. And when it's appropriate for the two leaders to talk, then that'll happen. I want to stress, that said, that we are and have been able to maintain lines of communication between our two countries, even throughout all these tensions. And in fact, we're still working to get Secretary Blinken back on a plane over to Beijing, as he was planning to do a couple of months ago. And we're in talks with the PRC about potential visits of Secretary Yellen and Secretary Raimondo, at their invitation, by the way, to talk about economic issues.
And while it's not popular, would the president ever speak directly to President Tsai? I mean, would there be a conversation there, perhaps? What is his take on this meeting between House Speaker McCarthy and President Tsai?
That's actually a really great question, because it's going to show just how much in the pocket Joe Biden is of the Chinese if he's willing to do basically something formal with the president of Taiwan, especially with the tensions now happening with China. And some might say, hey, you know what, right now is not a good idea to even be messing with the Chinese, trying to push them into something that we know that we shouldn't be pushing them into, by meaning invading Taiwan, especially what's going on with Russia invading Ukraine. Our military assets just aren't in the where or in the capabilities of which they should be. And what I mean by that is we're having massive issues with recruitment. We literally had to lower the body weight of people that would be eligible for recruitment in our military. I mean, the numbers are abysmal. It's super low. So things aren't looking good. We got to be strategic about this. Let's hear John Kirby's response.
Not uncommon for presidents of Taiwan to transit the United States, as President Tsai did.
It wasn't the question.
It's also not uncommon for Taiwan officials, certainly at the president level, to meet with members of Congress, as President Tsai did.
Question.
This is it's very typical. There's, again, no reason for any overreaction here.
So strategically dodging it, and, you know, kind of probably what we should do is dodging that type of question. Sometimes you have to do them, which says a lot for me, because you know I hate when people dodge questions. They don't answer them. You know, that definitely strikes a chord with me. But with tensions rising like the Chinese are doing, surrounding Taiwan at the present moment in time, doing a lot of military operations in the area, even surrounding Taiwan with their military operations, I think it's a good call here for John Kirby, especially when we're supposed to have our diplomats and members of our cabinet meeting with the Chinese to kind of lower the pressure, lower the heat a little bit on what is happening. So good on John Kirby for the way that he answered that, even though I'm not a big fan of them dodging questions. We'll have to be in agreement here that, hey, it was a good call. You know, should he talk to them maybe behind closed doors? I would say probably, and I think that we are in communication with Taiwan. But moving into the next bit of the White House press conference here, you got a reporter basically calling out the elephant in the room of, where's Joe Biden at? Why is Joe Biden not standing on that podium or doing a formal press conference with the White House press corps, the White House correspondents here, ones with unvetted questions? I think we all know the answer, but let's hear the answer from the mouthpiece of the leader of the free world, Karine Jean-Pierre.
The question has to do with the lack of a press conference during the president's upcoming trip. and the lack of press conference that we see in general from this White House. I represent a news organization that owns 113 television stations, and a question that I'm often asked, and I don't know the answer to, so I'll ask you that question. Is the administration trying to protect the president from our questions? Please, answer
Absolutely
that question.
not. Absolutely not.
So why the lack of any interaction in a formal setting to have a press conference?
I mean, the president takes shouted questions. I understand, John. I understand. I understand. I've dealt with this question about 3 times already. I understand. It is the job of you all to ask this question to me. Totally get that, and that's not a problem at all. But certainly, the president many times has stood in front of all of you, has taken questions on his own, because he wanted to see what was all on your minds. He wanted to see what the questions you all were going to ask him, and he wanted to answer them directly. That has happened multiple times, many times during this administration, and that will certainly continue to be. When it comes to a formal press conference, I don't have anything to share with you at this time.
He's going to continue here, but if you notice her language here of, oh, I know I got to answer it. It's okay that you ask me this type of question. I hear you. I understand. Look, I actually do believe that Karine Jean-Pierre understands what is happening, and she knows this guy, meaning the president, is not cognitively there to take unvetted questions. And we've seen gag after gag after gag, or gaffe after gaffe from this guy, meaning the president, fumbling through his words, fighting with this teleprompter. I mean, literally on Easter, he was rambling and talking about losing eggs, even though the question was about him running for president in 2024. He can't do it. Everybody knows that. And what's amazing to me is you have no outlets out there, Fox and anybody else, pushing the idea of where is a cognitive test for this guy? Why is he not out there more? All outlets there in that room should be asking the same question. Where's Joe Biden at? Like a formal conference, unvetted questions for like 2 hours. And just see how many gaffes come out from this guy. We all know what's going on. She knows what's going on. The press knows what's going on. They're just trying to get her to at least admit the fact that our president isn't all there upstairs, and that's why everything's going to bleep, is because he's the one running the show, or at least that's what we're being sold on.
It's just one last thing.
Yeah, sure.
Just to button it up. You recognize that as it relates to prior administrations, the president's predecessor, President
Watch the
Obama,
pushback here.
President George W. Bush. I've been here long enough to have covered President Bill Clinton. This is not the norm. The norm is we do get an opportunity to ask the questions to the president about domestic and foreign policy issues in a formal setting at some point. And you choose that point, but we haven't had that opportunity in quite some time.
So I'll say this. It is also unprecedented that a president takes as many shouted questions as this president has. And he has.
I know the last
Okay.
administration, I'll tell you, almost every day I'm just
Okay,
building
well, we'll certainly get the data and share that with all of you. I hear, John, I hear your question. I heard Zeke's question. I hear you. I hear you on the press conference, on a formal press conference. We get this probably every couple of months when you guys ask us about a formal press conference. I don't have anything to share with all of you at this time, and I'll just leave it there. Okay, Jeremy.
It is actually one of the biggest cover-ups, I think, of modern history, and I really do mean that in terms of what they're allowing and disallowing the American public to see from this president. I mean, this is going back decades, folks. And the press are trying to find answers for us. They're trying, but you have this administration hiding Joe Biden left and right. Like I said, he sleeps in at least till 9. Lord only knows when he goes to bed. What is he actually doing for this country? Basically nothing other than denigrating it and destroying it from the inside out. Speaking of destroying things from the inside out, folks, heck, Trojan Horse, How the Left is Destroying America, written by yours truly, Brad Roberts, folks. You can get your copy on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and I was laughing the other day. I didn't even know this. We're in Walmart, so you can buy it from Walmart as well. Basically, any major outlet. We're trying to get in Target and other places, but heck, you're buying these up like hotcakes. Some of you are currently reading it now. We would really love for you to head over to Amazon and leave a 5-star review for us. It does help us tremendously. We have people critiquing our book, or should I say, putting it in book clubs and giving recommendations on it. So support us by buying a paperback, ebook, or paper version. And going over to Amazon or Barnes & Nobles, your help and support would be greatly appreciated, folks. I really do mean that. And thank you for everyone who has already bought in a book. I wish we could do signed copies. If you ever run into me in real life or we do a book signing, please show up and I will be happily to sign that, especially when I know a lot of your names in the live chat now. And I will continue to try my best to memorize everybody. But what's interesting here is, again, they're going to sit there and hide the Biden administration from all of us and not take unvetted questions. And it's the biggest cover-up, I think, in American history here, or at least one of the many, I should say, of cognitively not allowing that test to be released, meaning taking a cognitive test of this guy and having it released out to everybody. It was a big thing for Trump, right? And I use this example all the time, but literally when Trump was taking a drink, he was like, his hand was slightly shaking. And that could be from like low blood sugar or whatever it may be. Maybe he was tired or something at the time. But literally the press, in conjunction with the Democrat Party and the progressive left, were pushing the idea that he is unfit to hold office because his hand was shaking slightly when he was taking a drink of water. And they wanted to implement the 25th Amendment. But when we see Joe Biden hit a golf ball backwards, fall up a flight of stairs multiple times in the same staircase, and then separate occasions of him falling up a flight of stairs again, furthermore, fighting with his teleprompter, losing his train of thought, not answering questions coherently, falling asleep during interviews, like mid-sentence falling asleep, not like Ronald Reagan falling asleep where it's just a boring-ass interview or press conference, but just falling asleep mid-sentence on the guy. I mean, there is gaffe after gaffe after gaffe, again, gag after gag after gag of us just having endless videotape of this guy falling apart in real time, and they're not disclosing any of it. Nobody wants to have that conversation about him not fit to run office. They're all excited that he's going to run in 2024. Why are we even having that conversation? Have you seen just the collapse of this guy cognitively from when he was vice president to today, let alone from him on the campaign trail today? I mean, we were all talking the campaign trail of him being shot up with some drugs. I mean, there were stories coming out where literally whistleblowers were saying that they saw Joe Biden's wife, giving him pills before certain press conferences or before the campaign or before speeches. I mean, it's alleged, but that's what was the rumor. So Lord only knows how bad things have gotten now. I've heard that there's actually tracks on his arm. Again, this is all alleged. This is a rumor. I've heard that there's people with photographs of tracks all up and down his arm because he's being shot up with something. This is crazy. But again, nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to cover it. I wish that everybody would band together in that room and actually go full force on this because, again, there's a cover-up happening in real time. Well, speaking of things that aren't a cover-up, we have the White House just being open about something, and that's to remove your Second Amendment rights. That's to ban your firearms, folks. The Senate just passed banning assault weapons, which we'll show you kind of which weapons they're going to ban. But let's hear it from the horse's mouth during yesterday's White House press briefing on banning assault weapons.
See?
Sort of the Kentucky shooting, in your statement at the top of the briefing, you're pretty critical of Republicans, but you didn't mention anything that the president wants to do, is doing himself about this. Is he at the end of his ability to do anything when it comes to gun violence in the U.S.? Is he effectively at this point powerless?
Look, Zeke, as you know, and as I've talked about, the president has talked about many times, the president in his first 2 years of the administration has done more executive action than any other president when it comes to gun violence, when it comes to stemming gun violence, when it comes to protecting our communities, our schools, and so he's taken action. He has taken action over and over again. Just last month, he was on the West Coast announcing another executive action, and we are seeing from these executive actions that he signed, more than a dozen, that the Department of Justice has taken some actions and pushing forward some of the kind of provisions in those actions, especially as you look at red flag laws and those types of programs. More than $300 million went to about 49 states and territories.
And it's not going to do anything. So you just spent hundreds of millions of dollars for something that isn't going to. I wish it would work. Again, I wish red flag laws would work. And in theory, they should work, by the way, in theory. But in practicality, we've seen time and time again where they are not working, but we're still going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on this stuff. And you also got to love the irony that she's talking about and basically excited about them utilizing executive actions. This is the Democrat Party thinking, you guys, is that big government is good government. The more stuff that we push as an executive branch when there's supposed to be a limitation to our powers is a good thing. In the Democrat mind, that is a good thing. And it also has kind of been seeping into the Republican Party again, which I'm a registered Republican. I voted for Trump in 2016. I'll vote for Trump again. I've only voted for Trump, actually. What I'm trying to say is Trump himself was pushing through executive orders as well. I am not a fan of the president pushing through executive orders. He's supposed to just basically be a fly on the wall, kind of somebody that's away from the spotlight. He's just there, going back to the old times, and basically not in front of everybody, constantly saying knucklehead things or even saying good things here. He's just supposed to be there, you guys. But now we've come so accustomed to executive orders this, going to other states, pushing this, an overreach of powers, and just being basically just throwing it out there as if it's nothing, which is insane. We got to get out of this mindset that this is just a normal thing to be talking about. That's not the structure of government. That's not how it should be, even though it's there. But it's amazing to me also that the Democrat Party is talking about crime. They're talking about, removing your Second Amendment rights. They're talking about this in certain cities. Look at Democrat-ran cities. The crime is through the roof. And we've talked about how The View, specifically Whoopi Goldberg, was talking about, well, it's red states that have the most crime. True, but this is what they do with manipulation of data. Once you look at those red states and you zoom in, it's the blue states that are being ran by Democrats, or should I say blue cities that are being ran by Democrats in red states that is causing all the crime. So this is how they cover up the data. This is how they push a certain narrative. All the while, you have Alvin Bragg of New York not prosecuting anybody, but going after Donald Trump for $130,000 of hush money that happened years ago. That's outside the realm of statute of limitations. At least that's one of the theories. That's what he's going to spend his time on. Not actually the average American, not actually spending time protecting them. They want to sit there and go after Donald Trump because of Trump derangement syndrome and go after Republicans, which is so typical of the Democrat Party. Like I said, they've technically always done this, but it's really prevalent during the Obama administration, and it's really been exacerbated here with the Biden administration, the rest of the Democrat Party. I mean, it's so much irony in that statement of like, oh well, he's going to these states to lower crime. What is your party doing about crime other than exacerbating it all? There's a reason why people are leaving Democrat-ran areas. There's a reason why they're fleeing to red areas.
To put that into place in those states. So there is actions that we have taken. The thing is, the president cannot do it alone. You know this. There is a legislative process that needs to happen, and Congress needs to act. And I listed out to ban assault weapons. Yes, the president mentions that over and over again. And high-capacity magazines, require safe storage of firearms, require background checks for all gun safeties, eliminate gun manufacturers.
There are already background checks, for the love of God. They're already there. Anybody that's purchased a firearm legally, there are already background checks.
Immunity from liability. Those are the things that need legislative actions. And so he cannot do it alone.
Can we go back 5 seconds? Because I believe she talked about liability on gun manufacturers.
Require background checks for all gun safeties, eliminate gun manufacturers' immunity from liability.
That's insane. That is literally insane. And again, the objective, if you heard, was to get rid of assault weapons, which is virtually all weapons. I mean, they talk about how the assault weapons is a semi-automatic weapon. We've heard that from Joe Biden's mouth himself. So they sit there and try to just utilize this word that nobody else utilizes. They want to remove your firearms, folks. They're being clear as day. One of the mechanisms is, yes, to do it legislatively, but the other mechanism is to do it legislatively, not just literally taking your guns, going door to door and removing them or doing a gun buyback program. But the other function here is to institute a legislation that, in a nutshell, puts gun manufacturers liable for somebody else committing a crime. I mean, where does that end? I mean, you can do that with knives. Gun manufacturers who manufacture knives is somebody basically utilizing a knife to commit a murder or a mass murder, which we've seen in the UK and other countries that have a lower a regulation of or higher regulation of guns or no guns at all. Furthermore, I mean, where does that stop with literally anything? I mean, you could stab a person in the neck, multiple people, by the way, or just stab a bunch of people with a pencil. Should those manufacturers of now pencils, I know it's an insane argument, but it still holds true nonetheless, that they're liable now for somebody else's actions, utilizing something of which it may or may not have been intended for use of. Insane.
The things that need legislative actions. And so he cannot do it alone. And so we need Congress to act. And if you think about assault weapons ban, we know when the president was involved in 1994 to get that done, we saw gun violence go down. And when it sunset 10 years later, it went back up. So we know what could work. And that's why you continue to hear the president calling on Congress to take action.
So but you're not announcing new actions now, and is the sense the president's done everything that he can himself?
Well, the president is always going to find ways, so is his team. Here, we have the Domestic Policy Council, you have other offices here at the White House, you have the Department of Justice. We're always going to find and figure out ways that we can take another step outside of all of the historic steps that this president has taken to announce another way to protect communities. But the president has done the work. Now we need Congress to act.
And just to follow Ken's question to Kirby.
And Congress has acted, folks. The Senate passes a ban on assault weapons. Here's what would be banned under the law. Okay, so we're going to go through this relatively quickly, but Senate lawmakers voted 27 to 21 Saturday afternoons for House Bill 1240, which would pass the purchase and sale, which would ban rather the purchase and sale of assault weapons in the state of Washington. And the reason why we look at certain states is because there's an idea there that this would extrapolate to other states, or at least that's the tendency to see what happens or does happen. The bill was proposed, as you can imagine, of a Democrat, and it was passed through the House. Quote, young people are taken to the streets and will hold us accountable if we don't do something. This comes from a Democrat, of course, Patty Kugler. Or Kudiger, I don't even know how you pronounce her last name. When we're talking about mass shootings and the killing of people quickly and without warning, we're talking about assault weapons. These people are so stupid, man. These people are so stupid. It's semi-automatic firearms. Stop using assault weapons. And when you hear somebody say assault weapons, just throw out their argument automatically because they're knuckleheads. And that's why we're here today. And we're here to say enough is enough. So what are they going to do? They're going to take away your right to own firearms. So it says here, HB 1240 would prohibit the manufacture, importation, distribution, sale, or offer for sale of any assault weapon. Some exceptions for licensed firearm manufacturers and dealers are baked into the legislation, allowing law enforcement agencies to continue to purchase from firearm dealers and manufacturers, for instance. Exceptions are included for those who inherit an assault weapon. You gotta love how they're just throwing this word in legislation just willy-nilly. And the bill would not regulate possession for Washingtonians who currently own an assault weapon. Isn't that amazing? So you can have a guy or gal, or non-binary, right? Because that's what we're told, and that's what we're trying to be sold on here, is that you could be any other or all in between. We got to use that because a lot of trans people are shooting and conducting these mass shootings, by the way. So we got to be inclusive here. We got to be inclusive. Folks, you already have an assault weapon, and for those that are on audio, we have a podcast on Podbean. If you haven't noticed, we're on all major distribution platforms, folks. So if you want to listen to this in your car, going shopping, or you want to kind of throw it on in your car while your Democrat is strapped in on the passenger side of the car and can't get out because you're going 80 miles an hour on the freeway and subjecting them to truth, we would love that as well. But it's amazing that you can have somebody literally owning a firearm before this legislation that goes and commits a mass murder with the firearms of which you're trying to ban. I mean, let that one sink in. I'll get to my point later, I promise. Exceptions are included for those, again, that inherit all this stuff. Violations of the proposed legislation would be a gross misdemeanor, which could include jail time for up to 364 days and a fine of no more than $5,000. You had some debate on the bill, as you can imagine, but what I want to show you is the list itself here of the guns. So AK-47 in all forms, by the way, automatics have been banned for decades. You have AK-74s. You got the Bushmaster Carbon 15. I mean, heck, what else? I mean, there's literally a Colt Car 15. You name it, it's probably on here. The one that I was looking for was the Glock, which I find interesting because it's one of the most sold firearms in the world, but they're not going to ban that. It's also utilized a lot in killings, too. It's a very unsafe firearm. I myself am a fan of Glocks. But you got SIGs on here, Springfields, of course. You can come on here and look, 9mm carbine rifles, the Uzi. I mean, there's all sorts of firearms that are listed. And here comes my point of this all, folks. None of this is going to stop the people that want to commit heinous, evil crimes from committing heinous and evil crimes. You creating a list of guns on here is not going to stop somebody from doing that specific action. AR-15's on here, the M16's on here, the M4 in all forms are on this list as well. Again, this, if you already have it in Washington, supposedly it's going to allow you to keep it. The point here is none of this stops mass shootings. None of this stops crime. They just don't understand that, or they do understand. And again, the end goal, which I believe this to be true. I think the end goal is to remove the Second Amendment. I think the end goal at the end of the day is to make sure that nobody has firearms. Sure, they'll say, oh, well, you get to keep yours for now, but make sure you register it, by the way. Well, why register it? Why register it if there's no, what's the point of the registry? What are you going to come back later and remove it? That's why I don't like registries, by the way, because I don't want that to be tracked back later on when you do decide to chisel away at my Second Amendment right, so much so that there is no Second Amendment right. So when there's no right, and you want to confiscate my firearms, well, it's on a registry now. Now you know where it's been. You can track everything, and ultimately you can see where I live, and then come by force with your guns from the government, because you get to have guns because somehow you're the cool guy and the good guy, and you're going to be sold on us that you're the cool and good guy, and that I should listen to everything you say, all the while you're standing on my doorstep with guns pointing out at my face, trying to remove my Second Amendment, or at least I should say at that point, just remove my firearms from the household. So I think that's the end goal. But the goal that they're pushing here of removing these firearms off the streets or not allowing the sale of doesn't solve the issue whatsoever. It's so astonishing to me that people buy into this crap. I mean, you got to be a full-fledged knucklehead to actually believe that this is a good move whatsoever, and this solves it. So if you can't use an AR-15, what's stopping you from, again, using a Glock 17, Glock 19, SIG, whatever it may be, the firearm of your choosing? What's stopping you from not utilizing those? It's not on the list, meaning you could buy it in the state of Washington. So wouldn't you just go buy the gun that's on the list to go commit your crime? Or just buy it illegally off the streets? I mean, heck, you name it. These criminals are going to do it, folks. But, the law-abiding citizens are the ones that are going to be harmed by this because they can't protect themselves, whether that's from an actual criminal domestically or domestic a government such as ourselves going usurpacious, or a foreign government, which we all know there's a lot of governments out there that want to sit there and remove you off the face of this earth. But we can't talk about that because we'll be removed off YouTube. We can't talk about the actual true things that are happening, objective truths that we know that are taking place around the world, because all this stuff is way too sensitive for the average viewer, supposedly. I don't know. Hit that like and subscribe button, folks, if you haven't already. Moving into our last story of the day. Folks, we're talking about our Second Amendment rights, as well as just our rights in general being chiseled away here. And now you're seeing it happening in real time. And I have talked about this. I said this would happen. I've been talking about this for 2+ years. Before I ever even started the Bald Brad Show, I would talk to people about this. What I'm saying here is a federal judge backs firing of an Indiana teacher who refused to use transgender students' names and pronouns. I've talked about this. You don't have to go. You could go back to the show either this week or last week. We talked about it. Anytime I'm talking about the education system, I've referred to the fact that I've been in trainings where literally we were being talked to about transgender people, because it was kind of the new movement that was happening about 5 years ago, and how the science department was holding their sheets trying to figure it out and understand this whole thing, because it didn't make sense to them that there was more than one gender. They were trying to understand how you can be non-binary and be fluid in between. And I said how hilarious it was. But I said the part that wasn't hilarious was the fact that we could all lose our jobs over this, and everybody didn't take me seriously. We were actually featured on Project Veritas because we were talking about this whole idea, not just about the transgender stuff and being fired, but also about how there's certain teachers, these activist teachers to be more specific, that were being let go, but they're being hired by other school districts. And I was saying, well, what's stopping them from basically indoctrinating your kid in the next district? Because now they're hired there. They go from one to another. And that's the piece that was featured on Project Veritas before you had James O'Keefe being basically removed off that as starting his new gig. Well, now you can be fired. And again, I said that this was a thing and nobody believed me. Well, Indiana music teacher theory, pushed out of his job for refusing to call transgender students their preferred names and pronouns. But he was willing to call them by their last names, and we'll get to that. Took a hit from a federal judge Friday who upheld a lower court's ruling that the school district did not violate his rights. Check this out. You might be thinking, how's that possible with freedom of speech? They don't care about freedom of speech, you guys. They don't care about that at all. Your freedom of speech is gone with the progressive left. You have to understand that. I'm not talking about Democrats. I'm talking about progressive left. These people, in a nutshell, are evil at their core. Not all. If I'm labeling somebody as progressive left, they are evil at their core. They want to destroy this country from the inside out. They want to remove your rights, and they will do it by force. They will beat the living crap out of you for their belief system. You can see that from Antifa, which is chapter 1 of our book, by the way. I know I plug this a lot. Literally, Antifa, who's supposedly anti-fascist, I call actual fascists in this book. I take you from the beginning of Mussolini all the way down to Antifa and show you how Antifa is anti-fascist, masquerading as anti-fascist, but in actuality is fascist. From their uniform to their ideology to their beliefs to what they've said is chapter 1 of this book. I mean, it really gets you going engaged. If you haven't already picked up a copy, it's on Amazon. It's in the link below. Heck, folks, get a hardcover, paperback version, ebook. You will love this book. I'm telling you. It does a number on the progressive left on how they want to destroy this country from the inside out. But what they're doing here is they don't care about your rights, and they want to remove them. So you have former Brownsburg high school teacher John Kluge sued the school district alleging religious discrimination after he cited his personal religious convictions for refusing to abide by the name and pronoun policy, opting to address transgender students by, get this, their last names instead. He was still addressing them, heck, probably more respectfully than utilizing even the first name. I mean, sometimes as teachers, we don't use first names. Sometimes it's easier to memorize last names. So you might call somebody Mr. Smith or Miss Rosenberg, whatever it may be, but you're utilizing their last name and being respectful in that way. But you are forced, you guys, to call them by the correct pronoun and name. Even if you have no idea what their pronoun and transgender name is, you might be sitting going, Brad, how is that possible? Exactly. You have a roster, and that roster is what is given by the parent or guardian of that child. That is their legal name on that roster. The only way to change that name is by the parent or guardian, not the kid, because they don't have the right, they don't have the legality to change their own name. So you have to have the parents go into the system and work in conjunction with the school district to change their name on the form. We use what's called an Aries system. You as a teacher don't know their other pronouns because, say, they've never told you because they haven't been ousted yet, or they haven't come out yet as being transgender, gay, or whatever it may be. This was the question that we all brought up as faculty and staff, and one of the trainings was, how would we know? We're not trying to be disrespectful, but how would we know so we don't get fired? And they say, well, it's up to the student to tell you. So my thing was, if a student, and now Anthony Brian Logan, which I've been on his radio program before many times talking about this, talks about what I'm saying here. So if you ever hear Anthony Brian Logan, ABL, talk about the story, it's because it came from my mouth of saying, what's stopping them from wearing a bracelet, going to the bathroom, and wearing a different colored bracelet that's supposed to signify their pronouns. So they might feel like Jessica with a blue bracelet, go to the bathroom, 5 minutes later come back, and now they're David. And you're supposed to sit there amongst 30 students, think about what you're teaching, where you're going, answering questions, making sure you're not messing up on the mathematics, and know just slightly the different color of that bracelet, and make sure you correct them or call them by the correct pronoun. Because you might lose your job if you don't. And it's literally happening now. Furthermore, you can have a student that snuffs you out and knows that you're conservative Republican without you ever even mentioning it, and sitting there screwing with you, so now you're fired. So if a student doesn't like you, this is the stuff they could do. It's a dangerous game that's being played here. And it basically removes the power from the teacher, and it removes your rights as just an individual with all this stuff. I mean, the left are doing a number here, folks, not just on your children, but also in the education system and the teachers as well. The school district, after enacting the policy in 2017, initially agreed to let Kluge use last names to address the students instead, according to the Associated Press. Some students alleged the move created an uncomfortable classroom experience and singled out students who identified as transgender and reported their concerns. So he sat there and made an adjustment. He goes, fine, you know what? I'm not going to call them by their transgender name. I'm not going to call them by their first name or their pronouns. I'll just call them by their last name. And it wasn't good enough. That's the thing. It's never good enough. Apologizing is never good enough. Catering's never good enough. Sitting there adapting's never good enough. They don't like you. We have to understand this, you guys. That was my biggest thing about not starting the show years ago, was because I was so worried about what I said. I was so worried that, they might not like it and I could be fired, I could be let go. They're not going to like me regardless of what I say. Whether it's true or not, they're not going to like me. Me saying the truth that literally there is only male and female I could be fired for. They don't like you as an individual because you are not a part of them. You are not with them, even though they say they're inclusive. They are not. Oh boy, are they not. Well, Kluge said he later resigned in 2018 after the school reevaluated the last name policy and told him he would be fired if he did not comply with the preferred name and pronoun rule on the books. Basically, the school goes, oh crap. Well, we didn't think about this one, so we got to change it now so we can go after these people because everything has to be done by force. He sued with the help of conservative legal group Alliance Defending Freedom a year later. I'm spending a lot of time on this, folks, because it is a big deal. It is a massive deal, especially for me as an educator. I'm not sitting there trying to be rude to transgender people in the classroom, gay people, or whatever it may be. I just want to teach math for the love of God. Just let me do my job and leave me alone. Just let me help you be successful in math. Don't target conservatives. Don't target Republicans. Look, sometimes there's religious aspects in our personal lives. We're not trying to belittle you or be rude to you or be disrespectful. We'll call you by your last name, which is probably the utmost respect, by the way. We just want to teach our subject, not be mean, not call you by names, not treat you any differently. We'll call everybody else. We'll call everybody by the last name. We just want to do our job. And you guys, it's so insane that you can't literally say, hey guys, or he or she. You can't say any of that to a crowd anymore. You have to say like everyone, which is even a problem now. You can't even say everyone. So can I get the attention? Like, you have to use your language differently in the classroom, and it's absolutely insane. And I understand that is insane, but you have to understand that literally it is fear of losing your job and your career and never being hired by another district again because they're all being ran by leftists. That's why, hopefully the show becomes popular enough to where, by the time this craziness really comes to its climax, that I am safe by making money off YouTube. Right now, as I've specified, I make not much money on YouTube, you guys. I mean, if you broke it down hourly, I mean, it's pennies, maybe hourly, if that. So my hope is that we can get enough people to join the movement, the Patriot movement, and become a Patriot in our membership, to where at some point in the future, in the next hopefully 3 to 5 years is my goal, that we could be self-sustaining here and we could do this full time and spend more efforts into doing live streams and maybe hiring people and whatever that may be at some point. But right now, the numbers aren't there. But this is my fear, that at some point I will be fired because of this YouTube channel. Something I say is going to piss somebody off, and then I'm let go. Even though I love my job and I love helping everybody, regardless of whatever they may be dealing with internally, whether that's transgender, LGBTQ plus community. Like I've taught many students of that community. I'm there to help them with math. I'm not there to judge them. I'm not there to do anything other than basically help them succeed in their academics. I'm not there to talk politics with them. I'm not there to necessarily befriend them. I'll have respect for them, but I'm their teacher. I'm there just to help them. I can't be any more clear, and hopefully that's becoming clear. I just want to teach math. I just want them to do well in their academics and go on and be successful in life, regardless of what they are. The Chicago-based 7th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled on Friday that Kluge's religious convictions, get this, you guys, on the issue, his religious convictions, which he has a right to, issue disrupted classroom operations, upholding an Indiana federal judge's previous ruling that the refusal created an undue hardship on the district. Where does that end? I mean, that is some broad language there. I mean, that really, now that we're sitting there and we're basically legislating your speech, and the speech that you utilize in the classroom could create an undue hardship on the district and basically disrupt classroom operations, is insane. And what's more insane is they are more likely to fire you as a teacher for quote unquote creating a disruptive classroom operation, even though every class that you have as a teacher, you have one student that is constantly being disruptive in the classroom. And they're not going to sit there and remove that student from the classroom, which is disrupting everybody else from getting a quality education, by the way, and also changing the classroom climate of that classroom. Meaning the culture of that classroom will all become disrupted because they see they can get away with it. If you remove one student, many a times that one student, you will have a completely different dynamic in the classroom. They're more likely to fire you than they are to remove that student or remove them from the district and have to go to maybe an adult school or some other school and receive help and basically allow a classroom to flourish than, they are to sit there again, remove you or whatever it may be. You understand what I'm saying here. Brownsburg has demonstrated a matter of law that requested accommodation work an undue burden on the school's educational mission by harming transgender students and negatively impacting the learning environment for transgender students, for other students in Kluge's class, and in the school generally, and for faculty, the court's opinion read. I mean, it goes on and on here, folks, but I think you got the understanding and the gist of what is happening in our school system. Not only are they going after and targeting teachers. I don't know if this guy's Republican or conservative. I'd imagine he's conservative Republican because he's utilizing a conservative Republican nonprofit to help them, which again is the Alliance Defending Freedom. But they're going after speech. They're going after your Second Amendment rights. They are being absolutely clear about this. And the question is what are we going to do about it? We can't do much in terms of force, and we shouldn't use force. What we should use is our words. And that's why I wrote this book. Yeah, of course I'm plugging it because I want to sell it. And I want to get people to enjoy this writing. And hopefully that one day we can write more books, which I'm working on a second one right now, where we can actually make an impact in the culture. You see this from Daily Wire. You see this from Fox News and other outlets, The Blaze, that are trying to create a movement. And that's what I'm trying to do here. I try my best to sit there and just be who I am. Of course, part of it, the energy and the this and that and the laughing, the facial expressions. Yes, a part of that is me. But I'm also an introvert. I'm also very quiet in real life. I don't talk too much. But I see an important moment in our culture right now that we are losing as conservatives, Republicans. We are losing this nation. And I don't think we take that too seriously because we absorb all this information, but there's not really a movement with it. Do you know what I mean? Are we willing to support those conservatives and Republicans that want to speak out about this? I'm being dead serious. I can lose my job, my career from this channel. That is 100% a serious thing. And that is a gamble that I'm willing to take because I see how serious it is. That's why I work so hard, you guys. That's why I work multiple jobs. You know, I do the show, I come home, I do the show, I do the research, I do everything myself. Everything you see here, from me communicating with other outlets, to writing my books, to the research I do, to finding the articles, to recording, to the editing, to uploading multiple videos. I mean, everything that's done is done just by me, even though I work 3 jobs. And I'm not trying to receive a pat on the back, but what I'm trying to get you to see is I'm in this like all. This is a big deal to me to sit there and push the conservative thought and ideas and basically expose the progressive left because they are a danger, not the Democrat Party. I think the Democrat Party is shifting further left, but specifically the progressive left are a danger to this country. And it's their ideologies, it's the things that they're doing that are going to sit there and destroy it. And I think we're going to get to a point where it's too late. So hopefully through this channel, we can grow as a community because we got a freaking awesome community. You guys are, I say this all the time. I'm not trying to build you up. I love you guys to death. I mean, heck, I have a ton of fun hanging out with you all. And that's why we drag these on 40 minutes or an hour, because we're creating community where we're all getting along here of conservatives or Republicans. We don't go after one another. We all have the same beliefs that this America that we've created, or should I say the founding fathers, God, all of us have utilized and basically bought into the creed of this American dream. Just what it means to be American is in our chat. And we have a movement that I think not a lot of people have, or if they did have, it basically diminished. And that's not something I want to let go here. I don't want to diminish our community. I want our community to stay strong. We have friendships here. That's why we know everybody's name in there. We say good morning to everybody, right? Neil, you got Shib, you got Music Junkie, okay? You got Jennifer, you got a ton of people, Lisa, her mom. I mean, there's even a lot of people that aren't in the chat that just watch with their loved ones to the show. That's the community I want to build here. Whereas if we ever did like a meetup or something where you could show up to that meetup and you know everybody in that meetup, you go, holy crap, I see in the live chat, how you doing, right? You never met them in real life, but you could build a friendship. That's the community that I want. And that's a community that nobody else has created, by the way, on YouTube. That is not a community that the Daily Wire has created. Granted, they're so big. That's not a community that Steven Crowder has created. You look at any other YouTuber, they have not created an actual community of conservative Republicans. That's what I want to create. I want to create one where everybody knows everybody for the most part. I understand we're going to get big at some point, or I hope so. But I want to create a community, again, that we share something of value to one another. I ask for you to buy in with me here. Join the Bald Brad Show. Buy the book. Buy some merch. But also just hit the like and subscribe button if you feel that I've earned it and you know that you're going to get the truth out of me as well as conservative thought and ideas, folks. I think you've heard me ramble enough. But hell, I love hanging out with y'all. Buy some shirts. Again, we got the Bald Brad shirts with the logo here. I think only me and Shib own it as of right now. They're a little pricey, but hey, it's not me making them. Somebody else makes them, and they got to produce them, and they put all the work into it, and then the shipping, everything, and the taxes, because of the government. It's a little bit pricey, but folks, I will say that it actually fits really darn nice, and the fabric is good here. The fabric is not a thing. Look at you. It's the best shirt you've ever seen, okay? I'm telling you, this guy, the Bald Brad, is amazing. Look, folks, the cameras aren't going to talk about him. He's going to be banned by the mainstream media. He's going to be banned by YouTube at some point. He might lose his career here. You got to support a true American patriot. We're working on the Donald Trump. But folks, thank you so much for always hanging out. I love you guys to death, and I'll see you tomorrow here on Bald Brad Show.